When I sent out invitations for my daughter's birthday, my mill replied all with, "Isn't it a bit much? She's 2. Save the show for her graduation." I ignored it until she threw a separate party and invited everyone behind my back. When I found out, my husband said, "She meant well." So I showed up to her event, dressed to the nines, with a balloon arch, catering receipts, and a giant banner that read, "This one was actually planned by her mom." Her guests were confused. She left early. I stayed and danced. I found out about my mother-in-law's secret party on a random Tuesday night, standing in line at the Walmart pharmacy, holding a bottle of bubble bath shaped like a unicorn for my daughter's actual birthday goodie bags. My phone buzzed, and it was one of my husband's cousins, someone I barely talked to, sending me a chipper little text. "Can't wait for the party this Saturday. Should we bring gifts to both events or just your mills?" Both events. I stared at that phrase until the text blurred. I hadn't planned 2 events. I had planned one simple, cute backyard party with a few decorations, a bounce house, and cupcakes shaped like farm animals because my daughter is obsessed with cows. I'd sent out the invitations 2 weeks earlier. They were sweet, not flashy, not expensive, just pink cardstock with a cow holding a party hat. And then my mill hit reply all with, "Isn't it a bit much? She's 2. Save the show for her graduation." I swallowed it. I told myself, pick your battles. I ignored her and moved on. My husband shrugged and told me not to take it personally, so I didn't. But apparently, while I was minding my business and assembling little cow-themed centerpieces, she had been planning an entire separate party. She rented a venue, some big room at the community rec center in Hendersonville. She invited everyone I had invited, plus people I didn't even have on my list. Her coworkers, her friends from church, her neighbors, my husband's family members who hadn't spoken to us in months. She even invited my sister. And no one thought to tell me, not even my husband, so I called him. He was at work, distracted, half listening. "Did you know your mom planned another party for our daughter?" I asked. My voice was shaking in that way where it's both anger and disbelief. He exhaled like I was bothering him. "Yeah, she mentioned doing something small. I didn't think it was a big deal." "She invited everyone," I said, my voice cracking. "Everyone except me." He gave this soft, patronizing little chuckle that made something inside me snap. "She meant well. You know how she is, she just likes hosting things." "She replaced me," I whispered. "I'm her mother and she replaced me." "She didn't replace you," he said. "She's just excited." Then he added the sentence that sealed what I was going to do next. "Don't make a scene, please. It's really not worth the drama." Not worth the drama. I drove home in silence. And somewhere between the Walmart parking lot and my driveway, something icy settled in my stomach, this sharp clarity I hadn't felt before. I walked inside, put the unicorn bubble bath down, opened my laptop, and made a completely new plan. I was done being quiet. Done being polite. Done pretending like this woman didn't constantly undermine me at every turn. So on the day of her party, I showed up. Not quietly. Not passively. I walked into that rec center in a fitted black dress, full makeup, heels, and the confidence of a woman who had finally hit her limit. I rolled in a portable balloon arch. I had catering receipts tucked neatly in a folder under my arm. And slung over my shoulder was a giant printed banner that read, in thick, bold letters, "This one was actually planned by her mom." Her guests stared. My husband froze. My Mills smile died right off her face. But that wasn't even the real beginning. Because what I saw next, right behind her carefully set-up table, made everything inside me go cold. And that's where things actually started to unravel. Before everything blew up, things with my mill in Hendersonville had always been tense. Not dramatic, not explosive, just this constant low-grade hum of judgment and control that never seemed to stop. From the moment I got pregnant, she acted like she was the one carrying the baby. She lectured me about everything. What I ate, what I wore, what I read. She even tried to tell me what music I should play near my stomach, like she was curating the soundtrack of a child she apparently believed she was co-parenting. But the real issue started the day my daughter was born. I was still in the hospital, exhausted, stitched, bleeding, and shaky. My baby was barely 6 hours old. And my Mill, who had already pushed past visiting hours by telling a nurse she was basically a second mother, leaned over my hospital bed and said with this weird, triumphant smile, "She looks just like a Collins." You really can't even tell she's yours. I should have shut things down right then, but I had just had a baby. I was too tired and too polite. And my husband, he laughed. He always laughed off her comments like they were harmless, even when they sliced me open. When my daughter turned 1, I tried to make the day special. Nothing crazy, just balloons and a smash cake and a few friends in our backyard. But my Mills spent the entire time whispering comments to people about how Pinterest parties are so wasteful, and some moms try too hard because they're insecure. I heard her say that last part. I was walking past the patio door and caught her voice drifting out. She didn't know I heard, but the words stuck. Still, I kept the peace. I smiled. I cleaned up. I told myself maybe I was overreacting. After the party, she posted a photo of her holding my daughter on Facebook with the caption, "My angel's first birthday. Couldn't have pulled this off without me." I didn't say anything. My husband told me not to start drama. That became his favorite phrase. Don't start drama. But the thing about letting things slide is that people start thinking they can walk all over you without consequences. In the months before the second birthday, my Mill kept dropping hints that she wasn't sure the whole farm theme was age-appropriate, and that kids don't need all these parties. Sometimes she'd say it in front of my husband. Sometimes she'd text it to him. I'd only find out because he'd forget to hide the notifications. But what hit me hardest was how everyone in the family treated her like the real parent. If she posted a photo with my daughter, she got dozens of comments. If I posted the exact same photo, maybe 2 people reacted, usually out of pity or obligation. Everyone acted like she was the mom and I was just around. So when I sent out the invitations for the second birthday, I thought maybe, if I kept it simple this year, she would just back off. A sweet card, cupcakes, a bounce house, some cow decorations, that was it. And then she sent her reply all message, embarrassing me in front of my entire extended family like it was nothing. But I still let it go. I shouldn't have. Because her party, the one she hid from me, wasn't just some last-minute gathering. It wasn't small, it wasn't casual, it wasn't innocent. It was planned, it was polished. And when I walked into that rec center and saw what she had set up behind her table, I realized she had been working on it for weeks, maybe months, and not just the party, something deeper. Something that made my stomach twist when I finally saw it. Something she never meant for me to find. And that's when I knew this wasn't just overstepping. It was something else, something worse. When I walked into that rec center in Hendersonville, the first thing I noticed wasn't the decorations or the crowd or even my Mill's shocked face. It was the table behind her. The one she'd positioned like some kind of shrine. At first glance, it looked like the usual grandma stuff, frames, pictures, little sentimental props. But the closer I got, the more I realized it wasn't innocent. It wasn't random. It wasn't even meant for a normal party. It was a display, like an exhibit. Photos of my daughter printed and arranged in chronological order from birth to now. 12 months, 18 months, holidays, playdates, bath time, eating spaghetti, learning to walk. But here's the part that made the back of my neck burn. I hadn't taken half of those photos. Some were from times I wasn't even present. Times when my Mill had insisted on helping out or taking her for a few hours so I could rest. And the captions. They weren't cute, they were possessive. Things like, "My girl's first steps," teaching her to say Nana before anything else. She always reaches for me first. But the worst one, the one that made everything in me go still, was a picture of my daughter in her little strawberry pajamas, sitting in my Mill's lap on the couch at her house. My daughter looked sleepy, confused, like she'd just woken up from a nap she didn't want to take. The caption read, "She feels most at home in my arms, always has, always will." My hands actually shook. My Mill saw me staring and rushed over like she could block my view with her body. "Oh, honey," she said, voice bright and fake, "these are just for fun. People like seeing how she's grown." I didn't say anything. Because I was looking past her now, past the pictures and the table and the decorations to the guests. And I saw how they were interacting with her. Every time someone approached, she said things like, "Well, you know how I am with her. She's basically mine during the week. Her mom means well, but she gets overwhelmed. I've had to step up a lot, step up, like I was failing, like she had to fill in. Like she was the stable one and I was the background noise." Then I looked at my husband, standing off to the side like he wanted to disappear, and I realized this wasn't new behavior. She had been saying things like this for a long time. And he had let people believe she was raising our daughter. But what really pushed me over the edge happened when a woman I didn't know walked up to me. Mid-60s, gray bob haircut, big smile. "You must be Linda's daughter-in-law," she said. "She talks about you sometimes." "Sometimes." "Your daughter is just the light of her life," the woman continued. "You're lucky to have a mother-in-law who basically raised her since birth." My jaw locked. "She didn't raise her," I said quietly. "I did." The woman blinked, confused. "Oh, I thought, well," Linda said. And there it was. The truth everyone else already knew, but I had been too naive to consider. This wasn't just boundary pushing. This wasn't normal over-involvement. This was deliberate, calculated. She had been building a narrative, grooming it, feeding it to everyone around her. A narrative where she was the mother figure, the reliable one, the one people praised. And I was the afterthought. I felt something click inside me, a clean, hard, final click. That's when I walked back to the entrance, grabbed the giant banner I brought, and let it unfurl across the wall. People stared, whispered. My Mill's face flushed bright red. My husband mumbled my name under his breath like I was embarrassing him. But I didn't care. Not anymore. Because right then, at that party she planned behind my back, surrounded by the photos she curated without my knowledge, I finally understood something I had been trying to avoid. This wasn't about a birthday, it wasn't even about me. It was about ownership. She wanted to own my daughter. And in that moment, I knew the first twist was coming. I could feel it like thunder building. I just didn't know how big it would be. I thought the photos were the worst of it. I thought her captions and the whispers and the little claims of ownership were the real reason she'd planned this whole event behind my back. I was wrong. Because the real betrayal, the part that made my stomach actually drop, was sitting on the far end of her memory table, half hidden behind a teddy bear holding a heart. A binder. A big, thick, navy blue binder with a plastic cover sleeve. Inside the sleeve was a printed page that read, "Primary Care Plan, Linda Collins." At first I didn't understand what I was looking at. I thought maybe it was medical stuff, or emergency contacts, or something to do with her diet. Something normal, it wasn't. I pulled it out, and when I opened the first page, everything in me went cold. It was a custody plan, not official, yet not filed, but drafted, organized, labeled. She had typed out a full schedule detailing how she would be the primary caretaker for my daughter during the weekdays. She had outlined routines, checklists, developmental goals, feeding preferences, most of them things I had established, and even a section called Parenting Notes for Mom. Not the mom, not mother, just mom, as if I was a side caretaker she had to supervise. The notes were filled with lines like, "Mom struggles with consistency. Mom becomes overwhelmed easily. Avoid leaving baby with mom for long periods. Gradual transition recommended." My hands felt rubbery. Like they weren't fully attached to me. My Mill saw me reading and rushed over, snatching at the binder like I was stealing something precious. I held it tight. "What is this?" I asked, my voice low enough that people nearby turned their heads. She tried to laugh, tried to act breezy. "Oh, it's nothing, just something I put together in case you ever need extra help. You know how busy you get." Busy, that word again, that implication again. My husband walked over, looking alarmed, and asked, "What's happening?" I handed him the binder. "Explain this." He flipped through it, his expression tightening, but not with anger, with embarrassment. Like he was annoyed I had brought it up in public. "It's just something my mom made," he said. "It's not a big deal." "A custody plan," I shot back. "With notes about how I struggle and shouldn't be alone with my own child for long periods." My Mill reached for my arm. "Honey, you're reading too much into it. I'm just preparing in case." "In case what?" I asked. "In case something happens to me, in case you decide I'm not fit, in case you want to take her." That's when she said it, soft, calm, matter of fact. Like she'd already rehearsed it. "In case she needs stability." The room felt suddenly quiet, even with the noise of people talking, kids laughing, music playing. Everything inside me tuned out except those 4 words. My husband didn't defend me. He didn't snap at her. He didn't even look shocked. He just sighed. "I told you my mom worries," he said. "She thinks you get overwhelmed. It's not her trying to take over, it's her trying to help." Help. The word tasted rotten. Because then, without hesitation, my Mill added, You know I'd be willing to take her more permanently if you ever feel like you can't handle things. More permanently. I felt the floor shift under me. Like the entire past 2 years suddenly reorganized themselves into a pattern I was only now recognizing. Every concern, every comment, every undermining whisper, everything had been building to this. She wasn't just overbearing. She wasn't just controlling. She had been documenting me, preparing for something, positioning herself. And my husband knew. Maybe he didn't know all of it. Maybe he didn't see the full plan. But he had heard enough of her comments and never shut them down. Never defended me. Never corrected her. Never told her to stop telling people she basically raised our daughter, because deep down he believed her. That was the twist. The betrayal wasn't just hers. It was his. And standing there in that rec center, holding that binder, staring at the two people who were supposed to be my support system, I realized something I had never let myself consider. I wasn't just fighting a mother-in-law. I was fighting a team, and they had been planning their story for a long, long time. I didn't leave the party right away. I stayed long enough for everyone to watch my mill yank the binder out of my husband's hands and clutch it to her chest like a wounded animal. Long enough for her friends to whisper. Long enough for my husband to tug at my elbow and hiss, "Can you stop making a scene?" A scene. That word echoed in my skull all the way home, through traffic on Indian Lake Road, past the Kroger where I'd bought cake mix earlier that week, past the quiet houses where parents didn't have to fight for the right to raise their own kids. By the time I pulled into the driveway, I wasn't crying. I wasn't shaky. I was clear. Laser clear. I put my daughter down for a nap, sat at the kitchen table, opened my laptop and started working. Not on decorations. Not on a banner, not on some petty comeback. I started gathering receipts. Every text, every message, every email. Every photo she had posted with captions claiming my daughter as hers. Every time she corrected my parenting in front of others. Everything my husband had brushed off. I printed them out, highlighted them, organized them into folders. Because here's the thing my mill had apparently forgotten. I'm not stupid, and I don't lose quietly. She wanted documentation? Cool, I'd make some too. Then I started researching custody laws in Tennessee. Not because I thought I was in danger of losing my daughter. My mill had no legal footing. But because I wanted to know exactly how courts view third-party overreach. I wanted the language, the legal framing, the evidence standards. The more I read, the more fire settled in my chest. She hadn't just been annoying. She had been building a case. A sloppy one, but a case. And she had looped my husband into it through concern and emotional manipulation. He didn't see it as strategy. He saw it as a mom being helpful. So I built something of my own, not for a courtroom, but for exposure. For truth. For pulling every mask off her face in front of the people she'd manipulated for years. First step, I made a group text with every person she invited to her secret party, including her church friends, her coworkers, her family. I didn't send anything yet, I just added them. Second step, I called my sister, the one my mill had invited without telling me. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, I was going to tell you, It's fine," I said. "I need your help." And because my sister had seen enough of my mill's behavior to have her own opinions, she didn't even hesitate. "What do you need?" "Proof," I said. "Photos, screenshots. Anything she's ever said to you about taking my daughter or me being overwhelmed." She had plenty. Third step, I drafted an email to my daughter's pediatrician requesting printed records of every appointment I had attended, with timestamps, sign-ins, and notes. Spoiler, I attended all of them. My mill had been at exactly 2. Fourth step, I called a graphic designer. Well, more accurately, the teenage daughter of one of my coworkers who is frighteningly good with Canva, and asked her to mock up a polished, bright, friendly-looking fact sheet about my daughter's life. It included key milestones, who was present for those milestones, who attended doctor's appointments, who provided daily care, who arranged her childcare, who paid for what every answer was me. Not my mill. Not my husband. Just me. Fifth step, and this was the part I planned slowly, carefully, with the precision of someone who has hit her breaking point. I prepared a presentation. A literal presentation. A calm, factual, non-emotional breakdown of what my mill had been doing for the last 2 years. Screenshots, quotes, dates, captions, comparisons, the binder, the concerns. The lies, not to a judge, not to the family group chat, but to the people who mattered most in her world, her guests, the ones she had invited behind my back, the ones she had bragged to, the ones she had fed lies to, the ones who believed she was the real, stable figure in my daughter's life. I printed everything out, bound it, put it in a clean white folder, and as I worked quietly, methodically, I realized something dark. I wasn't just planning revenge. I was preparing to burn down the narrative she'd spent years building. Page by page, word by word, person by person. And when I was done, when the folder was thick and my printer was out of ink, I sat back and breathed for the first time that day. She wanted to embarrass me, replace me, rewrite me out of my daughter's life. Fine. But she forgot the most important rule. If you come for a mother, you better pray she doesn't stand back up. And I was already on my feet. What I found next, the second twist, changed everything. I thought I had everything figured out. I thought the binder was the deepest layer of her scheme, the heart of whatever twisted plan she'd been building. But 2 nights after the party, while I was tightening my retaliation plan and avoiding my husband as much as possible, something happened that cracked everything open in a way I didn't see coming. It started with a phone call at 9:47 p.m. from a number I didn't recognize. Normally, I ignore unknown numbers, but something in my gut told me to answer. "Hello," a woman cleared her throat. Are you the mother of the little girl, the one with the birthday?" The phrasing was strange. I sat up straight. "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Janine. I'm a case manager with the Department of Children's Services in Sumner County." My stomach dropped so fast I felt dizzy. "I'm calling," she continued gently, "because we received an anonymous welfare concern regarding your daughter." Anonymous welfare concern? I couldn't breathe for a second. "I want to be clear," she said quickly. "We have no reason to think your child is in danger. The information we received is vague and doesn't meet removal criteria. But since your name was mentioned, I wanted to reach out directly." My voice came out thin. What did the report say?" There was a pause, papers rustling. "It states," she read, "that the mother, meaning you, frequently becomes overwhelmed and has difficulty caring for her daughter for long periods. It also says a maternal figure, your mother-in-law, I assume, has expressed increasing concern and may seek more consistent custody if the mother continues to struggle." I closed my eyes. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I just felt this cold, razor-sharp calm settle over me like frost on a window. "Ma'am," the caseworker asked softly, "are you still with me?" "Yes," I said. "Did the report mention who filed it?" "No," she said. "Anonymous. But I've been doing this job 20 years. When I see language like this, organizing schedules, routines, developmental notes, it usually comes from someone who wants placement authority, not from someone who's truly worried." I swallowed. "So you're telling me—" "I'm telling you," she said gently, "we're not pursuing this. Your daughter's records are clean, your doctor's notes are clean, there is nothing suggesting neglect. But I wanted you to be aware someone is trying to create a paper trail." Paper trail? The same phrase I had whispered to myself 2 days earlier when I stared at her binder. "Thank you," I said quietly. "Really? I'll email you a copy of our closure report. And please, if anything escalates, or if you feel someone is trying to undermine your parental rights, call us. We know the difference between concern and manipulation." When I hung up, I sat at the kitchen table in the dark. My husband came downstairs 5 minutes later and asked why I was awake. I didn't tell him about the call. Not yet. I just studied him, the way he looked both tired and annoyed, like the last few days had been hardest on him. He opened the fridge, grabbed a soda, and said, without looking at me, "Mom told me she thinks you're angry because you feel threatened by how close she is with our daughter. Maybe you should talk to someone about that." Talk to someone, like I was unstable, like I had problems, like I was the one who needed intervention. It clicked right then. The second twist wasn't the call. The twist was worse. He wasn't neutral, he wasn't clueless. He wasn't caught in the middle, he was participating. Passively, subtly, maybe without fully admitting it to himself, but he had been feeding her narrative, backing up her concerns, supporting her involvement, telling people I get overwhelmed, rolling his eyes when I pushed back, laughing off her comments. He wasn't just letting it happen, he was validating it. He was the missing piece she needed to try something bigger, something legal, something official, something dangerous. And the moment I understood that, something inside me hardened into stone. Because suddenly, this wasn't about a party, or photos, or a binder. This was about my daughter, my autonomy. My right to be her mother without interference or sabotage. And if they wanted a war, fine. But they'd get one they couldn't come back from. What my Mills said next, the reason behind everything, was colder than anything I'd ever heard from another human being. I confronted her 2 days later. Not in public, not in front of family, not at her church or workplace. I wanted her alone, where she couldn't play the sweet grandmother act she'd mastered so well. So I drove to her house in Hendersonville while my daughter was at daycare. My daycare choice, the one she'd tried to suggest alternatives to a dozen different times. When I knocked, she opened the door like she'd been expecting me. That smug, almost pitying smile sat on her face like it belonged there. "I figured you'd come by," she said. "You've had time to cool off." I stepped inside without asking. "No," I said. "I'm not cooled off. I just want to hear you say it." She closed the door slowly, like she was preparing for a performance. "Hear me say what?" she asked. "That you called DCS on me." She didn't flinch, not even a twitch. Instead, she walked to her kitchen island, pulled out a glass, filled it with water, and sipped it before answering. "I did what I had to do." My heart thudded once, hard in my chest. "You tried to start a record on me," I said. "A paper trail for custody." She gave a slow, disappointed sigh. "You're being dramatic again." "There's documented proof," I shot back. "They told me what was in the report, your words." She didn't deny it. She didn't apologize. She didn't even pretend it wasn't her. Instead, she finally set the glass down and looked at me with this calm, quiet seriousness that chilled me the way cold water shocks the lungs. "You were never meant to be her main parent." I actually stopped breathing. She continued, "You weren't raised to be a mother. You didn't grow up in a stable home. You never had structure. You don't have strong women in your life to guide you. You float, you panic, you struggle, you have softness, weakness." I felt my nails dig into my palms. She kept going. "I knew from the moment you came into our family that if you had a child, someone would have to step in. Someone responsible, someone consistent, someone who understands what a child needs long-term. I told my son that years ago." My throat tightened. "He knew you felt this way." "Oh, honey," she said with this horrifying gentleness, "he's always agreed. He won't say it to your face. He doesn't like confrontation, but he has always known you're not built for motherhood. He just didn't want to hurt your feelings." Tears stung my eyes not from hurt, but from pure rage. She stepped a little closer, lowering her voice. "You love your daughter, I know that, but love isn't enough. She needs someone who won't fall apart. And you fall apart. You have since the beginning. After she was born, you cried constantly. You couldn't keep up with feedings. You were overwhelmed, you needed help." "I had postpartum depression," I snapped. "That's normal." "It's weakness," she whispered. "Exactly what I'm talking about." I felt like I'd been slapped. "And if you think I'm ashamed of calling DCS," she added, "I'm not. If it came to that, if she needed a different home, a safer home, I would take her. Gladly." "A safer home," I echoed. "From me." She tilted her head like it was obvious. "You're unpredictable, emotional, and girls need stability. She thrives with me, you've seen it." The room spun for a moment, not because I believed anything she said, but because I finally understood the full scope of her cruelty. She didn't want to help. She didn't want to support. She didn't want to step up. She wanted possession. She had been waiting, planning for the perfect moment to push me out, and she genuinely believed she was the better mother. That she deserved my daughter more than I did. That my pain, my struggles, my humanity made me unfit. And worst of all, my husband had fed her narrative. Whether consciously or not, he'd given her the rope she needed. I looked at her, this woman who had spent 2 years building a case against me, and felt something inside me shift permanently. Whatever softness I had left toward her evaporated. Whatever hope I had that she might one day respect me died right there on her perfectly polished hardwood floor. She didn't just betray me. She didn't just undermine me. She wanted my daughter. And she would have taken her if she could. She underestimated one thing, though. I'm not weak. Not anymore. And the revenge I chose, it didn't just expose her. It ended everything she'd tried to build. I walked out of her house without another word. No screaming. No breakup speech. No threats. Just a door closing behind me, quiet, final, heavy, because I already knew what I was going to do, And it wasn't impulsive, it wasn't explosive, it was controlled, cold, permanent. I went home, tucked my daughter into bed, and sat on the edge of the mattress while she breathed softly beside me. And that's when the truth settled in my chest like a stone. If I didn't end this now, really end it, my mill would keep pushing. Keep plotting, keep twisting every weakness into a weapon. And my husband would keep enabling her, maybe not out of malice, but out of the same cowardice he'd used to avoid protecting me since the day our daughter was born. So the next morning, I did something I should have done a long time ago. I hired a lawyer. A real one. Not a consultation, not a friendly conversation, but a full retainer with a woman in Nashville who specializes in parental rights and high-conflict family interference cases. I gave her everything: the binder, the screenshots, the pediatric records, the DCS closure document, the birthday party photos, the comments, the captions, the statements my sister had saved, the texts my husband had ignored. She read through it all slowly, carefully, and when she finished, she looked at me with this flat, almost impressed expression. "This," she said, tapping the binder, "is what people create when they're preparing for a custody dispute they have no legal right to file." She overplayed her hand. Then she asked the question I already knew the answer to. "Do you want to pursue full custody and restrict grandmother involvement?" I said yes. And then I added, "I want her nowhere near my daughter until a judge says otherwise." My lawyer nodded once. "Then we'll file an emergency motion today." By noon, paperwork had been submitted, documenting harassment, boundary violations, intentional emotional distress, false welfare reporting, and attempted custodial interference. All factual, all backed by evidence. My mill had wanted a paper trail. Now she had one. But it didn't paint the story she thought it did. When my husband came home that evening, I handed him a folder, the same one I'd prepared for her guests, and told him calmly, "I know you think your mom was helping. She wasn't. She endangered me. She endangered our daughter, and I'm done." He tried to argue, he tried to defend her, he tried to blame me. But when I showed him the DCS report, the actual text from a caseworker stating the concern was manipulative and unfounded, his face drained. Not with guilt, with fear. Because suddenly the situation wasn't women being emotional. It was legal, serious, documented. He asked if we could talk about this as a family. I told him, "There is no family if you can't protect your daughter from your mother. I'm filing for separation. You'll see her with supervised visitation until a court decides otherwise." He sunk onto the couch like someone had cut his strings. "I didn't think it would go this far," he whispered. "Yeah," I said. "That's the problem." 2 weeks later, we had our first hearing. My mill showed up with a Bible in her hand and tears already running down her cheeks. She tried to tell the judge she was just concerned. She tried to blame my mental health. She tried to cry her way into sympathy, but my lawyer handed the judge the binder, her binder. And when the judge opened it, when he saw the parenting notes, the schedules, the claims that I shouldn't be left alone with my daughter, his eyebrows shot up so high they nearly touched his hairline. He looked at her and said, "This is not normal grandmother involvement. This is custodial overreach and intentional undermining of a parent's authority." She broke, right there in court, sobbing, rambling, saying she just loves her granddaughter so much, saying she had to step in, saying she couldn't watch another child be ruined by neglect. The judge shut her down instantly. "Ma'am, nothing in this file suggests the child is unsafe with her mother. What this file does suggest is that you are attempting to replace her." And just like that, the ruling came, temporary full custody to me. Restrictive, supervised visitation for my husband. Zero contact between my mill and my daughter, pending further review. She lost everything. Every ounce of access she'd worked to build. Every piece of the fantasy she'd crafted. Every illusion that she was the real parent. My husband moved out 2 days later. He said it was too much change at once. I said, "That's what happens when you let your mother raise your child in your head." Now, it's quiet. My daughter laughs more, sleeps better, clings less. I didn't realize how much tension she felt until it was gone. I'm not stressed anymore. I'm not scared. I'm not doubting myself. And my mill, she sends letters, long ones. Apologizing, then blaming, then begging. I don't read them. My lawyer does. Last week, I found the balloon arch in the garage, the one I dragged into her event like a declaration of war, and instead of throwing it away, I kept it. Because it reminds me of the moment I finally stood up. Of the moment she realized I wasn't the weak one. And of the truth she'll never forget. You don't mess with a mother's bond and expect to walk away unscathed. My daughter turned 2 this year. Next year she'll turn 3. And that party. It'll be planned by me, the actual mom. And the banner will be smaller this time, just a tiny one hung above the cake. Still here, still her mother.